Hey, welcome to the Blue Horse Collective. You, of course, are watching Book Review, Episode 4, and today it is Dragons of Spring Dawning, the third and final installment of the Chronicles Trilogy, also the first canon trilogy of the Dragonlance saga. Written, of course, by Margaret, Weis, and Tracy Hickman, and at that time published through TSR, which is now Wizards of the Coast. Whole nother set of videos, y'all. We're not even going to get into it. Of course, if you've been following my book reviews, you know I've already done the first two, which was, of course, Dragons of Spring Dawning and Dragons of Winter Night. This is the turning point book. This is the epic conclusion, as they say. And if you've been following my reviews, you know that originally the first book was intended to be a standalone story. The second book was written because it's like, well, you know, that little book we did, that was so successful. Weis, Hickman, you know, why don't you write another one? Why don't you write a sequel to go along with that? And by that point, that book did so well that this one came about, and they knew this is something that's going to keep going. This is something we're going to, as a business, being TSR, we're going to continue to pursue. We've got a big fan base. We've got a hit. Excuse me. So this book was the first one written with the idea of, yes, let's bring this story to conclusion. However, by the time this one had hit the shelves, they had already started working on the next series of books, which was going to be the Legends Trilogy, or as it seems more commonly known, the Twins Trilogy, specifically Caramon and Raceland, which, ironically enough, featured on the cover here. This book so far, I'm just going to jump right in talking about the characters. Even when I was initially reading these books, I understand that the cast of characters in this story was massive. In fact, I've even read articles where it was, I believe it was Miss Weis saying that she had written an entire chapter and realized that she had forgotten one of the main characters, just completely left him out. And this character was supposed to be very important later on, and she was just begging, can I just kill him, please? I don't want to go back and rewrite this. It's like, no, you must go back and rewrite this. So, you know, it's the benefits of multiple people working on multiple projects involving one, let's say, overall umbrella project. Because, of course, not only do you have Weis and Hickman and the rest of the TSR team working on the game modules, but also now they're writing these novels, and anyone, I mean anyone who is a writer or has even tried, you realize that very quickly a story can take on a life of its own, and this one did, especially by this book, and I think it had the benefit of they've managed to scale down the cast a little bit. First off, even though we are now in the third book, overall, there was one character in particular that I always felt like had been ignored for the most part, and that was Caramon, Raceland's twin. He was very much just, he was the fighter. He was the tank in the group. Big, brawny muscle guy, and relatively dismissed as being simple, and I think, however, unconsciously, he was just kind of pushed to the back. He wasn't necessarily the interesting one. He was just a guy that always took care of Raceland. Now, also in the first two books, we had, mainly in the first book, we had a big focus on Riverwind and Goldmoon. Now, by the end of, it's either by the end of the second book or right at the beginning of this one. I'm losing it. I know I'm doing a review on this particular book, but you know there's particular points of transition from one to the other that became hard to keep straight in your mind, or at least for me. But they have essentially been written out. Of course, they got married. Sorry, spoiler alert. And they have left to go have a kid. So they've said, hey, we're done with the war. We're heading out. Sorry, see ya. Good luck. But this allows more time in the third book where you can tell that they've realized at this point there's a heck of a story here between the twins. So they've spent a little bit more time focusing on that. However, indirectly, especially Caramon's dependence on Raceland, which is actually a very interesting dynamic when you think about it, because it's so obvious, especially in the first book, how dependent Raceland is on Caramon as far as being physical support. Raceland's sick. He's not in good health at all. As a matter of fact, his health has been completely wrecked. Basically from birth. Yeah, he wasn't even supposed to survive. I'm not trying to, okay, in this case it'd be jump back to a book that was written as a prequel, but basically he was born and they said, he'll never make it to the morning. And he is saved by his half-sister, Kitiara, which, if you'll remember, was the Dragon High Lord. So his whole life he has not been healthy by any means, and now it's even worse. He's gone from being the sickly kid to near death. So Caramon, being this massive mountain of a man and just a physical powerhouse, they were stark opposites. And people pretty much dismissed Caramon as being, he's just stupid. You know, he's the other half of Raceland. You know, Raceland's the mind and Caramon's the brawn. And there was that symbiotic relationship they had as brothers, where Caramon would constantly take care of Raceland, and Raceland would more or less, I hate to say it, but especially in their later childhood and early adult years, he was the decision maker. He ran, well, their lives, to be honest. But I'm getting completely off subject here. The point is, although Raceland was physically dependent upon Caramon, you find that Caramon is very mentally dependent upon Raceland. That's his role. That's his job. That's what his life has been about, I'm here to take care of Raceland. Everything else is secondary. And he becomes very, very mentally dependent upon him. And as you'll see later on when I explain a particular part in the book, you'll see that separation is played upon very much in this story, which of course leads on into the next series that focuses on the two of them specifically. I'd still say to this day that the next trilogy is probably the best one in the series. But again, I'm getting off on a tangent here. I'm going to get back on subject. Other characters, of course, you know, Lorana's moved up in the world. Well, I don't know. You go from being more or less a princess to an adventurer to being a general of an army. But on the other hand, I'm still jumping ahead. But you know, she has found herself. So there we're seeing progress in progress in her character as well. There's Tanis. We're not going to even get into that mess yet. Let's see, Flint and Tass. They're Flint and Tass. You know, they're, although both characters very essential to the story in their own parts. For the most part, they're the loyal and hardy, running around with everybody else. They're the two arguing and carrying on, and they work well to keep the story moving. Let's see. Oh boy! Then on the other hand, you've got Kitiara. There's a little more. There's quite a bit more focus on her in this book. A very main role. There's another character by the name of Lord Soth who gets a very prominent role in this story. One of the most interesting characters in the series. And well, of course, let's see. Sturm died out in the last book. That's one less character that, as far as keeping up with in the book, you can tell very much that through this series there have been times where it was, as they're going along through the chapter, it was almost like a roll call. Okay, what's Carmon doing? Oh, he's taking care of Raistlin. Well, what was wrong with Raistlin? Oh, he was having a coughing fit. Well, what about Tanis? He's brooding over here. What about Lorana? Well, she's over there doing the dreamy eye girl thing towards Tanis, and it just went, you could tell it's almost like they were walking through a single file, like, okay, this person's doing this person's doing this person's doing this. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but as the author, you could see it was very much a chore to keep up with this 7 or 8 person party. Now we've whittled it down into, it becomes 2 separate groups that do regroup, of course, in the end, but smaller groups taking care of separate events, and you can tell that they're able at this point to manage the cast much better as far as writing a book. By now they had their sea legs for writing, so to speak, and instead of taking it from the perspective of playing tabletop, which basically what it was no big deal if you've got 5 guys all playing 5 different characters at the same time, everyone's keeping up with their own stuff, they're good. When you as a writer, even if you're a duo writing, well, probably especially if you're a duo writing, and you've got a cast of, say, 16 characters or more, which this one pretty much is, yeah, you've got some issues to keep up with. That's going to be difficult to, say, in a 20 or 30 page chapter, get much done when you've got, let's say 8 people at a time. You're going to have to try to keep up with and say, oh yeah, and by the way, so-and-so's over here with this, and well, why did this person pipe in with one line on that conversation? And it's like, oh, well, we had to include them somehow. I'm not criticizing Weis and Hickman. I think that, especially by this book, they had done a very fine job of finding the balance. But you read through this trilogy and you can very much see the learning curve. But, again, that's what it is. Now, there's going to be a quick segue. I'm going to come back. We'll do a brief, more or less spoiler-free, we'll call it semi-spoiler section where I go over the basic outline of the book. By no means sharing all the details, but gives you a basic idea of what goes on in the story. And after that, we'll get into some of my favorite parts, likes and dislikes, and go from there. Be right back. And welcome back. Of course, it's going to be the part where I do the overview of the book. This will be semi-spoiler territory. So, what do I mean by that? I'm only going to give you a brief Cliff Notes-like version of the plot summary. That means that if you've not read the book, and you're only using this as an idea of what the book would be about, whether you're going to go read it or not, you're going to be safe. However, I am going to assume that most people that are watching this video are fans of the book, just want to see someone else's point of view on it, or maybe thinking about revisiting the book for themselves. So there will be, without a doubt, a certain amount of spoiler material, but if you've not read the book yet, by no means worry about turning off the video. I'm not going to give away anything without warning, okay? First off, the way the book starts off is a little unusual from the first two. We start off with a great excerpt that I'll read to you later. There is then, which it's not going to show up on camera from here, so I'm not even going to really bother, but we get a beautifully drawn map of Krynn, mainly the continent of Ansalon, and I was just very impressed with this one. It looks almost computer generated to me because it's so precise, but there again, it could have been just that good of an artist. I don't see signature on it, but you know what? I've gone to college for English since then. There should be an annotation here of who did the art. And you know what? I am not seeing that right off. I'm not going to waste a lot of time, but anyway, I'll put an annotation right here if I'm able to find out who the artist was. But of course, just a page later, we have a poem here. I think it's actually supposed to be a song, but it's talking about Kitiara, who is of course known as the Blue Lady. She is the Blue Dragon High Lord. She's in charge of the Blue Dragon army of Tychisus. Which, if you haven't figured that out yet, there are 5 different heads of the goddess Tychisus, her army. Now, the reason for this, she is the mother of all dragons. One of her forms that represents her is a 5-headed dragon. Those 5 heads, of course, being red, black, green, blue, and white. Those of you not familiar with Dungeons & Dragons canon, those are the colors of the 5 evil dragons. You know, the ones that do this all day and... Oh wait, never mind, it's a little something different. But they are the ones who are the stereotypical evil dragon gonna eat you, take all your treasure. Any story you've read that's been written since the beginning of forever, that's that evil dragon. Now, of course, there are some other ones that are, we'll just say, super rare that get brief mentionings in Dragonlance. But these are the main 5. These are the predominant races of dragons, at least of the evil ones. There are also the good dragons and the neutral dragons, excuse me. But that's a whole nother subject. Each army in her overall force is represented by a High Lord, which are her generals, and each one of them represent one of her colors. You know, so there's red, black, green, blue, and white. And you don't realize this until one of the books that have actually been recently written, which happened between Winter Night and Spring Dawning. And that was Dragons of the High Lord Sky. And that is very much showing Kitiara's point of view from this part of the war. This is where they expanded on the story they originally wanted. And I'm trying to make this brief because there's a point to this. But you realize that the High Lords of each individual army very much represent the aspects of that dragon color that they had. You know, you have Verminard, very much a Red Dragon High Lord. He's hot-headed, he's big, he's brutal, he's going to go in there and massacre everybody, ask questions later, and if he happens to get a few spoils of war, you know, that's okay, that's cool, but he's there for the delight of war more than the spoils of war. So he very much represents the Red Dragon. You have Kitiara, who is very independent, one. She has her own agenda, and if the Queen of Darkness's plan happens to go along with that, then great. If not, well, we'll work it out later. But very strategic, very much her own person with her own ambitions that she's looking forward. Much like the Blue Dragons, especially as you read some of the later books and really learn about Sky, her mount. They very much represented each other. It was very interesting to see. I don't know if in the writing process, if it was so much they modeled Kitiara after the Blue Dragons, or if it became that the Blue Dragons were modeled after Kitiara. I would love to sit down with Weis, Hickman, or any of the other authors who helped develop those two characters and really see how that process went. But it was interesting. But the point being, these High Lord generals are very much the generals of those armies for very specific reasons. they represent what that color represents. It seems to mirror their personality. And I'm going to leave that at that, because I'm doing horrible at tangents here right now. But the next part is we finally get an explanation of Berem, the Everman. Now, he has been mentioned that ever since the end of the first book, we have been made aware in some way that not only were they looking for the blue crystal staff, they were looking for the green gem man, or as I call him, Triple G, you know, green gemstone guy. Anyway, G Cubed has been running from these guys since the beginning of the war. The brief explanation was, you go back in history, this was after the last Dragon War. Excuse me. Berem and his sister were out and about looking around the land, and they came across a pillar that was out in the middle of a field. Now, in this pillar was embedded, it was supposed to be an emerald or a green gem of some sort. I don't know if they specifically say an emerald or not at any point, but that's what I pictured. But it's embedded in this pillar, and he goes, hey, that would pay for, well, everything. You know, we're peasants, we're poor, we need money. So, even though his sister's going, this doesn't feel right, let's go. Yeah, he's over there prying it out, and when he pops it loose, unbeknownst to him, he has pretty much freed Takaisis from her imprisonment within the Abyss. Now, quick explanation. She's not able to come 100% into the mortal plane. She's still, for the most part, trapped, but now she can get her avatar out, or whatever you want to call it, okay? She's able to communicate, interact, even if it's indirectly. As a thank you for unlocking the door, she says, hey, since you like this gem so much, right there, we're going to plant it in your chest, and you will live forever. So, in the process of all this, Berem winds up killing his sister. And that starts an even bigger portion of what that curse is for him. So, he's lived a guilty life for hundreds of years. So we finally get that treat right there at the beginning. We get an explanation for all the rumors, all of the speculation we've had to have in the first two books. Now we know what's going on. Now we know the history, and we can move on with the story and feel like, as far as for ourselves when it comes to reading about the other characters as they're learning, it's almost like you get a neener, I know something you don't know. So that's very rewarding, and I thought it was very well placed. I thought it was actually well timed, because now all that anticipation that's been building up, we go, well, okay, tell us some more. What's this all about? What's this have to do with anything? Now we've got the whole picture, and we understand, aha, that's why she needs him. He's the key. And what easier thing to control or corrupt than a mortal? And even if you can't do that, well, get one of these other ones you've got corrupted. Send them out after him. So that turns into really the main driving force for this book especially. It's very much, we've got to get this guy to do this ritual and make this happen. And of course our heroes are going, no, you can't do that. But at the same time, we must go to where you want him with him to make it not happen. Oh boy. Catch-22, here we go. Now, when it starts with the main part of the story, the canon portion, if you will, after all that little extra at the first, book one begins with, you have Tanis, who of course ran off with Kitiara, you know. He's coming back and he meets his companions, and floats them because, of course, Kitiara has left for Somalia, and she had that failed attack on the High Cleric's Tower. But she has sent her favorite assassin, a draconian by the name of, let's see, it was Garrick, I believe. Anyway, just as, go watch him. So that way she's able to keep tabs on her boy toy. Now, when he meets up with the company that's there in Flotsam, which at this point consists of Gold Moon and Riverwind, who have actually not quite left the story yet, but it's getting there. There's also Tika, Carmon, and Raceland. So basically he tells them, it's like, you know, hey, I was trying to not get taken prisoner, so I kind of had to keep up the impression of being an officer. It worked out real nice, and Raceland comes real close to going, yeah, I'm going to call BS on that, but Raceland being Raceland, he's going to keep that to myself for right now. I'm just going to kick back here and let's see what's going on. He's very much, he's the guy who's willing to sit in the dark when he's got a flashlight just because he wants to wait and see for himself what's the thing in the dark, without revealing himself immediately, and he's a slinky character that way. So they go ahead and they go, well, yeah, that pretty much makes sense, so we'll let you come with us. They board and buy passage on a ship called the Perichon. Hopefully I'm saying that right, you know, Dragonlance pronunciation drinking game, as they say. Now would be the time to take a drink. When they get on that boat, they realize that the helmsman is, of all people, Berem, the Green Gemstone Man, the Everman, the man of a million names, Triple G. He's the helmsman. At this point, he's pretending to be mute. That's hilarious. But now that Kitiara, upon returning from her failed battle, in such a wonderful mood, she comes home thinking, it's like, well, at least I get to knock boots with my favorite boy toy. Where is he? Favorite assassin comes in. It's like, hey, you ain't gonna believe this. He's joined up with his other friends, and they're over in Flotsam. They're getting ready to leave on a boat. I can't believe it. Just something else going wrong with my day. Let's go chase them. So they're out in the middle of the sea. And in the middle of this particular sea, there was a huge disaster. It had to do with the cataclysm, and I'm not going to go into all the details for that. You can read it for yourself. But there's a thing they call the maelstrom, which is a huge whirlpool out in the middle. This keeps the whole thing churned up. Now, ships can navigate this sea, but they have to be very careful that they don't get caught in that current, because otherwise, you know, you get the Drano experience. All right. Now, Berem, in his desperation to keep away from Kitiara and the dragon armies in general, being the helmsman, he did everything he could to get away, and sure enough, they get caught in that huge current, that giant whirlpool that's out there in the middle of this sea. And as they're going wound and a wound and a wound and getting dizzy, they realize that Raceland's getting ready to do something. Yeah, he's got the dragon orb and he's getting ready to teleport away. Tanis, well, you know what? It's time to just read that passage here at the very first, here on the first page when you open up the cover. Insane, desperate rage twisted Tanis's face. Somehow he'd make Raceland listen to reason. Somehow they would all use the strange magic to escape. Tanis started forward, then stopped. From nowhere, seemingly, had come a small silver dagger, long concealed, fastened to the mage's wrist by a cunning designed leather thong. All right, Tanis said, breathing heavily. You'd kill me without second thought. But what about your brother? Carmon? Stop him. Carmon took a step forward to his twin. Raceland raised the silver dagger warningly. Don't make him come near me, Tanis, Raceland said. I assure you, I'm capable of this, truly. What I've sought all my life is within my grasp. I will not let anything stop me. Look at Carmon's face, Tanis. He knows. I killed him once. I can do it again. This referring to the point in his test in the Tower of High Sorcery, and the mages made sure to let Carmon see what his brother was really capable of. In a fit of rage, Raistlin thought that he killed his brother. Out of just pure anger, he raised his hand to him and killed his brother. Now, it turned out to be an illusion, but he didn't know that at the time. So Carmon has had to, since then, live with the fact that he knows that deep down there is a portion of his brother that... okay, and this is a great debate. Is Raistlin evil or not? He's definitely ambitious. He's willing to do what he has to do to fulfill his personal goals above all else, even if it means killing the one person in the world who would do anything for him, who loves him unconditionally, his brother Carmon. So, you know, without getting into the big debate about evil or not, definitely an evil capacity for action. So that gives even Carmon hesitation. He knows this, you know, if my brother thinks I'm getting in his way, I'm gone. Done. Now, what it comes down to is they know that Dragon Orb that he's had in his possession since the beginning of the second book, it has teleportation capabilities for a magic user. Now, Raistlin, in the back of his mind, he knows using this for only me, for myself, is going to probably be enough to almost kill me. If I take everybody with me, it will definitely kill me. And there's this thing about being dead, it just kind of dampers your plans, so that ain't happening. So, Raistlin, being the evil son of a bitch that he is, he teleports himself and leaves the rest of them to die. And as far as he knows, they're all dead. He returns to the city of Palathas and basically passes out in the steps of the High Library, leaving the rest of them to their fate. And we don't hear about them for a little while. Their part of that book is done. You're just kind of left thinking, it's like, well, they're gone. Bye. There's no way they can survive that. But anyway, he winds up on the steps of this library. And this is a library where they keep all the knowledge. This is kind of their version of the library in Alexandria. And Astenius, who is more or less... It is implied continuously throughout the series that he is an avatar for the god of neutrality, Gleelan. And all he does for the most part is he sits at his desk 24/7 doing nothing but writing the history of crime as it happens. He has vision that shows him everything. And that's all he does is record. He has an entire group of ascetics or monks who maintain and care for the library and all the books within, not to mention they transcribe books, etc., etc. So these monks come to Astenius going, hey, there's this dead guy. He's like, yeah, it's Raistlin Majory. Go ahead and get him, bring him in. Through a series of events, Raistlin winds up staying there and says, well, I know I'm going to die. I've wrecked my health for the last time. There's no way I'm going to survive more than a few days. So I'm going to do what I love doing. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to read, I'm going to research because I've got nothing else. Astenius does something very rare. He gets up from his work and goes to see Raistlin. And I have often questioned whether this was by accident, but when it comes to certain spell books that are contained within the library that Raistlin is interested in, he realizes that he can't read them. And Astenius goes, yeah, there's a key that you need, and by the way, the only gods that have it are Paladine, Tychisus, and Gleelan. Well, Raistlin knows that he is tied, ever since his test, to a very ancient mage, Fistandantilus, and this mage has helped him along the way. I'm not going to go into huge details, but he basically says, and I quote, "If you save me, you save yourself." So he's given the key, and you know, we'll leave that part as it will. Now we move on to the other portion of Book 1, which is mainly dealing with Laurana. She is with a group that has gone to... Well, they're with the Knights of Somalia. And through a series of events, she has become the only one who can be leader. The heads of the knighthood have been killed off one at a time throughout the war. And people have started looking to her because it's like, she's almost a mythical being to a lot of the people, because here's this elven princess who came out of nowhere, and she's of noble blood. So through her association as, however, unofficially representing her people to the free peoples of Ansalon, they go, well, hey, how about her? Let's put her in charge. The knight saying, this is a political move that could be very advantageous to us. Maybe we can bring the rest of the Elven Nation in with it. The people love her. This will be great PR, and we can recruit and get more soldiers. So yeah, let's do that. We'll call her the Golden General, as a matter of fact, because you know, she's blonde and she's hot, and that works, and sex sells. And well, they probably didn't say exactly like that, but you get the idea. So we're gonna put Farrah Fawcett up here on Dragon, and you know, make her a figurehead of sorts. Now I have to stop and tell you about this part. There was another portion in the books before where they talk about all the Draconians and where did they come from. Well, we've gotten to find out in this book how it works, and to help me with that, I would like to bring in a good YouTube friend of mine, T the writer. T, take it away and explain to us how Draconians came to be.
They take a good dragon egg and they sit it on an altar, and they go, and it breaks, and like maybe, I don't know how many exactly, several Draconians are born from a good dragon egg, and apparently there are many good dragon eggs.
Thank you, T, for that very insightful, very, though technical, very detailed explanation of how Draconians are made from a good dragon egg. Now, the reason that's important at this point is to remember that up until now, we have seen none of the good dragons, none of the metallic dragons. Of course, being gold, silver, bronze. There's another one, I can't think of it right now, but anyway. The good dragons, they're MIA. No one knows where they're at. Well, the whole deal from the beginning of the war has been, we have kidnapped your children. We have all the eggs. You don't get involved in the war, nothing bad happens to the eggs. So all the good dragons went, oh crap, okay fine, we'll hang back. We won't do anything. We're just in the background. Don't worry about it. Well, now that the cat's out of the bag on how they make Draconians and the fact they've been destroying, basically it's been kind of a holocaust on an entire generation of good dragons. Win-win for the bad guys. Hey, let's commit genocide, and out of that genocide create massive amounts of just super soldiers. So now the good dragons are involved. They want revenge. So it's the game is on. They show up and they say, all bets are off. Here's how we're helping you. Come on, knights, let's go. So that leads into book 2. And, you know, Laurana, as the Golden General, has been head of this army. And, oh, it's the Shining Palathas army. And it's very reminiscent of, and I'm going way in left field here for this reference. If you've watched Captain America, you see that very much early on, they use him as a political tool. He's just someone fancy up there dancing around stage saying, hey, buy war bonds, it's wonderful, and blah, 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 and look at me, I'm great. And of course, you know, the general public, they eat it up. Now, when it comes to regular soldiers, you know, they kind of look at us like, well, who are you? You gonna dance? The Palathas army, and in particular Lorana, are very much viewed in that light. The general populace think it's a great thing. The people who are actual soldiers, oh, okay, whatever. It's seen as a pointless army. However, Kitiara decides, well, if I'm ever going to have Tanis, I got to get rid of her. So she winds up setting up a trap. She says, look, Tanis has been hurt. We'll call a temporary truce because his last request has been that he wants to see you. Come on out. You'll get to see him. Everyone will go on their way. War starts up again tomorrow. Lorana, despite the advice of Flint and Tass, well, they go to the exchange site, getting ready to, you know, go along with the bargain. And lo and behold, you mean the bad guys were dishonest? Say it ain't so. Well, Lorana gets kidnapped. Now, that is a very screwed up part of the book. And as T pointed out in his review, and I agree with him completely, you send an agent. Well, let's say you're that agent. You're an agent sent to a very contrived plan, but you capture the #1 general, okay, the figurehead, the political trophy that's held up here by your opposing forces. This would be the equivalent of, say, Rommel setting up a plan, sending out a lackey to capture, and is successful in capturing Patton during World War II. Okay, you've got the guy. Now, okay, I suddenly realize how this is going to be such a bad example, but, you know, as things go on, this guy does not go straight to his leader and go, I brought the leader, here you go, gift to you for me, so, you know, give me the gold, give me my prize, give me what's coming to me, because, you know, hey, I'm the bad guy hero today. That doesn't happen. Basically, the guy who she sent out to get Lorana, I guess he has a thing for blondes, and he has a thing for elfin princesses, because halfway through, he pulls over, I guess if he lands, because, you know, that would be kind of silly, pull over mid-flight, finds what he thinks is an isolated place, and proceeds to try to rape her. Why? Now, and T's not the only review I've read that talks about this, but why would you stop when you have the prize in your possession and all you gotta do is get from point A to point B? And you're done, you're the hero, you're the man, you're gonna have enough money to go to a brothel and get all of that out of your system and still have money left over. Now I'm going to pull over now into what is a stinky, wet, dank cave in the middle of nowhere, and on a rock floor, I'm going to rape this woman who at this point, let's face it, we've been out and about, she's windburned, she's probably sweating, probably smells a little bit. What's the point? I understand evil for evil's sake, but at a certain point, don't you think, you know. Anyway, you know, he gets what's coming to him. Lorana, for a moment, thinks she might be free, but of course, then pops in Lord Soth, the Death Knight. If you don't know what a Death Knight is, basically, think back to Lord of the Rings, for example, and think of the Nazgul, where it's this hollow, but basically invincible form within the shape of the armor. Okay, how am I trying to say this? He's a wraith, basically. The undead. He is probably one of the most powerful forces on the mortal plane of Kryn. But he is a fallen knight, okay? He committed sins that were so great that he was cursed to live a pain-filled, undead existence, okay? But yet with that came so much power that people wonder, it's like, okay, is it really a curse? Well, for him it is, but we'll leave that be. But you turn around, you basically see what would be equivalent to us of a devil figure, okay? Who, you know, there's no way I can beat this. Well, being that he is so powerful, he basically just looks at her and says, "You're stunned." So, okay, she's stunned. Throws her over his shoulder, and he marches back to Naraka to go to Kitiara, saying, "Yeah, okay, I got her." He does the right thing. He has no emotion involved in it. Of course, you know, yeah, what's an undead guy gonna do when it comes to that? But he delivers the package. Now, that leaves her story where it is. She's captured, she's gone. So as far as we know now, the Golden General, oh, she's lost. That brings us to the next part in book 2. In the midst of everything, of course, Tanis and the rest of the group, even they're surprised when they wake up. I thought we drowned. Well, it turns out they're in an underwater city. They're being greeted by, of all people, a sea elf. Something they thought was legend. A lot of legends being found out to be true in this book. It's interesting. You know, goes from, oh, the gods exist. Oh, dragons exist. Oh, mythical items exist. Oh, races of people who we thought were legend. Turns out they exist too. I think that if I was anyone living in this world during this time period, I'd pretty much go, okay, forget it. Everything's true. Prove to me that it's not, because we've hit that point. So, we have the group coming to the surface in Kalamon. And just in time, too, because that's about the time that Kitiara comes to Kalamon and says, alright, I have the Golden General, and I will kill her unless I get everything I want. I want unconditional surrender, you're mine. And I also want Berem, the Everman, the Green Gemstone Man, Triple G, delivered to me, or else she's done. No questions, this is the way it is. Now, hearing this, Tanis resolves to go to Naraka and try to rescue Laurana. And he's bringing with him, of course, Berem, Caramon, Tika, Flint, and Tasselhoff. It's just like, hey, I'm going, I think you're coming with me. So, this is it. And, of course, there's the whole thing developing later on where they say, why are we bringing Berem to exactly where they want him? Well, we got to keep an eye on him. We got to keep him safe. Things progress, things progress. You intend on maybe making the trade if you have to, don't you? Only as a last resort, he says. So, and especially this portion of the book is interesting to see that Tanis, his character development is showing that he's very much in conflict. He's being torn in half. And it's reflective, of course, of what's the obvious, where he's half human, he's half elf. And it's almost like in his mind it's turned into, it's like, well, I'm obviously half evil or half good, and which one's going to come out, we don't know. Now, when they get there, they meet up with Fizzban and the Gold Dragon Pyrite, who is hilarious. During one of the trips, they've just escaped a trap of sorts, an attack, whatever you want to call it. And we have the second, what I'll call, thank you. we have the second, what I'll call, major death out of the party. So, quick spoiler alert, you know, if you don't want to know this part, fast forward a little bit in the video. But Flint, as he put it, I'm on my last legs, I'm going to die. And it's at this point that you see a major character development in Tasselhoff, where Sturm's death affected him as far as, oh my god, my friend just got killed. Now he has, who is, you know, I mean, face it, him and Flint, as much as they bickered and argued and went back and forth, you know, that was his best friend. And now you have him experiencing, well, here's a friend of mine who's now died of natural causes. However, indirectly it might have been influenced by events that have just unfolded. You know, Flint's heart fails and he dies, and that's it. Now what? What does this mean? And you find Tasselhoff, as a kinder, which should be impossible, suddenly experiencing these things and beginning to understand, wow, there's more to this. It's not just out having fun in an adventure. You know, people are dying. And you see this have a major effect on him, especially in later books. So, you know, that's an interesting point for him. And also it turns into more of a resolution for even Tanis going, you know, how many people are going to have to die because of decisions I make? So you start to see that transition in him where he starts thinking, it's like, okay, what is everyone's sacrifices going to mean? And what do they mean for me? You know, he starts beginning to say, well, maybe I should think more about my decisions before I make them. So it's an interesting dynamic that begins to happen with him. Now, this video is running a little longer than what I thought for, especially this part. So I'm going to sum up the last of the story as much as I can. Basically, they make it to the temple. Series of events. Spoiler alert for the remainder here. Berem, they wind up going to the pillar, which is now under the now regenerated temple to Kaisis. And he finds the pillar. He's able to speak to the ghost of his sister. And pretty much you can say it's like, okay, he learns to forgive himself because she already has. He kills himself on the pillar. And through deciding to do something selfless and sacrifice himself for the greater good, he's freed from the curse. That means that the gem is broken. It's no longer embedded in him. He's dead. He's reunited with his sister. They go off to heaven, or whatever you want to call it. And now, since the very curse that was holding him there is now broken, it also breaks the spell that allows Kaisis to have the connection to the mortal plane. Suddenly that connection is severed. So she's sucked back into the abyss. And all her direct influences, they go away. So now the temple's crumbling. And in the middle of all this, Laurana, the Golden General, of course, you know, she's saved. Kitty Yar's plans are foiled again. And we have a nice, neatly wrapped little conclusion to the story. Everyone manages to escape. It's this big Indiana Jones-like escape where everyone's trying to get out of the crumbling temple, and everyone barely makes it out. So it was an exciting part of the book. And with all that said and done, now they're all reunited. They're outside the devastation of what was once the temple. And in case you hadn't figured it out, and this is a major spoiler here on this part, okay? Fizban reveals himself to not be just a senile old man who was a wizard, but it turns out that he was the mortal form of Paladine, the god of good. You know, also the #1 opponent, if you will, of Kaisis. And in the midst of all this, we had Raistlin show up again. he felt like he owed one final debt to the companions. And at this point, no one understands how or why, but he has turned into a kind of super wizard. Not only that, but he's wearing the black robes. He's an evil mage. Now, when they're in this cavern going to the pillar with Berem, there's this part where they're being attacked by dragon hatchlings. They're being attacked by mages on one side, draconians on the other, and it's basically, this is it. This is the epic battle. We're not going to make it, but we're going to fight to the end. And who should appear but Raistlin? He begins hurling fireballs and lightning and anything else you could think of. Yeah, he's just machine gunning them out here, there, and everywhere. Now the other mages, they see this guy appear all of a sudden. They don't understand why he's attacking like he is. But at the end they just go, hey, you know what? We can't compete with that. Screw it. We're getting out of here. So they all teleport away. You know, meantime, Raistlin has killed all these little dragons. He's killed all the other guards. And there's his, at this point, what you would call ex-friends, all standing there going, where did you come from? Thank you, we think. And what the hell? You're wearing black robes. Hey, as you can see, I'm now powerful beyond any comprehension of yours. And, you know, I don't need you anymore. My debt's paid. Step in Caramon going, you owe us more than that. You betrayed us. You owe at least helping us get out of here. He goes, fine. And he continues to help him until this point at the end of the book. Caramon goes to him and is like, hey, you can still come with us. Don't worry, you don't have to wear those black robes anymore. So, oh, wait, you think I'm doing this because I don't want to? When have I ever done anything because I don't want to? I don't need you anymore. Look at me. I'm fine. I'm powerful. I'm able to stand on my own. Forget it, Caramon. Learn to live for yourself. I'm out of here. Using the dragon orb, he calls in the green dragon, Cyan Bloodbane, which, if you'll remember, was the huge green dragon who whispered the nightmares into Lorak's ear. So, you know, it's this reintroduction of this particular character, and Raistlin showing, hey, not only can I repel him now, but now I'm in complete control of him. So he rides off on the dragon, and we don't see him anymore until the very, very end. And this opens up for the next series of books about Caramon and Raistlin. Caramon is the one character who had all the potential to move on, to develop, but because he was so symbiotically connected to, and I'm sorry, my phone's going off like nuts here. He was so dependent upon his brother that the sudden severing of that connection, one, throughout the book became a driving force. It was almost like he was immersing himself in battle in order to not have to deal with the loss of his brother, the betrayal, or, you know, whatever. He almost assumes he's dead. Then, here he is having to lose his brother for a second time. And you see that he's not able to really deal with it. But at the same time, you know, that's a plot force for the next series of books. The very end of the book, and I'm talking after everything else, now we're talking, this is the epilogue. Raistlin goes back to Palathas. He stands before Shocking Grove, which is supposed to be, this Tower of High Sorcery has been abandoned for hundreds of years, and no one can go in there because it's guarded by undead, etc., etc. It's cursed. And the curse specifically said, no one will be allowed to enter this tower until the Master of Past and Present reveals himself. Well, Raistlin, the Master of Past and Present now, through a series of events that won't be explained until the next trilogy, walks into his tower and is now the master of that tower. So, you know, that takes us into the second set of books. And possibly the best series out of all of it, at least just by my personal opinion. I'm going to pretty much leave the review at that, because this has run a lot farther, a lot longer than what I thought it would. So yeah, Dragons of Spring Dawning. Overall, what do I think? Definitely, I'm going to say 5 out of 5 stars on this one. The overall story of the trilogy, you can definitely see a progression. And as far as being the vehicle that propelled the rest of the saga, I've got to give it props. It is a... Okay, well, I'm going to hesitate to say it's necessarily a solid story because, yes, it can be justified. There are plot holes and everything. But the series of books itself later went in and filled all those in, and it's used as a jumpstart for the overall story. And because it is the hub of everything that happened before and after on that, it's essential. I would say if you're a Dragonlance fan, if you're a fantasy fan in general, yeah, definitely get the books. Get this book, especially if you've gotten the other two. The storytelling is much improved. There's Easter eggs galore throughout this story. And overall, the characters, and especially the developments of the characters in this book, definitely worth the read. And, you know, hey, add it to your collection. It's worth having. It's definitely a classic for a reason. So, there you go. Dragonlance, Dragons of Spring Dawning by Weis and Hickman. Go get it. This is Blue Horse, cutting it off. Episode 4, taken care of. We'll see you later.